Hello, Cosmic Witches, and welcome back to the Divine Gossip Girls podcast. We are so happy to have you guys here for another fun cosmic chat with Maggie, Sophie, and I. Today, we are going to be talking about asking for signs and our experiences, our little magical divine experiences of times in which we have asked for signs and the universe delivered. So, we're going to be tapping into how to ask for signs, what asking for signs really is and yeah, our experiences with it. So if you are interested in this topic, then stick around. Make sure that you share your experiences with us in terms of asking for signs and receiving them. You can reach out to us on Instagram, and you can also email us if you are interested in doing that within the show notes below. All of our links are down there. So without further ado, let's go ahead and dive on into this episode.
Hey Cosmic Witches! Divine Gossip Girls here, your one and only source into the spiritual happenings of the cosmos.
Ever wonder what this month's energy will have in store for you? What the planets and stars are even up to? Or if the universe can just help you catch a break already?
Well, lucky you, because we have all the spiritual secrets to tell. Get ready to sip on your weekly dose of divine tea. All right, love. So I kind of wanted to start this conversation off just talking about how it is that I discovered asking for signs and a bit on how to ask for signs. So when I really started tapping into my spiritual awakening, it kind of progressed over a few years, but it was actually one time when I was nannying and I was like vacuuming. I remember I was vacuuming and listening to this podcast by Samantha Daly on the Makeshift Happen podcast, and her podcast title was titled like asking for signs, connecting with like the universe. And I remember listening to the podcast and I was like, oh my gosh, this makes so much sense. Of course I can ask for signs. And at the time I wasn't even really that spiritual, but I was starting to awaken more and more. So I was like, oh, I'm kind of curious about this. And she recommended the book, The Universe Has Your Back by Gabrielle Bernstein. And I'm sure we all know this book if you haven't read it yet in your spiritual awakening journey, or you're just a spiritually awakened being. I highly recommend it. So I ended up purchasing that book, and over the course of like a few weeks, I read it. And I remember getting to the chapter where she talked about asking for signs. And at that point in my life, I was pretty in like a low state, struggling with an eating disorder, really moving through hard things, doing long distance. And I had a family member pass away, and I was like, okay, it was kind of my wake up call. That's when I really started my spiritual awakening and just kind of recognizing, oh my God, like the physical isn't the only thing that exists. So from that book, I discovered how to ask for signs, and I really was curious as to, okay, is this actually going to work? And I think every single person, when they first start asking for signs or they first start spiritually connecting, they're like, is this a bunch of bullshit? Like, is this really going to work? Is this really, just a coincidence? And I think that's a huge shift I have made since spiritually awakening, is I have stopped seeing anything as a coincidence and start seeing everything as a synchronicity. I always say this is a sign because it makes my life better and it helps me in different ways. But I really shifted that kind of perspective over time. However, when I began this spiritual awakening, and I started asking for signs after reading that chapter in The Universe Has Your Back, I remember really tapping in, and I asked to see butterflies or something. And I clearly stated it, and I'm sure I'll let one of you guys talk about how you ask for signs. But at that time, I just kind of stated to the universe, I was kind of in a really low state, and I was like, all right, universe, show me a clear sign in butterflies. If I think it was at the time I asked if, going to eating disorder treatment was going to really change my life and work for me, because I had already gone to a treatment center and I relapsed. So I kind of asked the universe, I was like, all right, show me a clear sign in butterflies. And I remember seeing them all around. And I was just like, this isn't big enough. This is not big enough. I need a clear sign, because at the time I was really in my head, I was thinking, is this really the truth? Is this really just the universe, or is it a coincidence? And with time, though, of course, that progressed and progressed. It turned from a few butterflies every now and then to all of a sudden I saw a big ass field of butterflies one day. And I'll kind of tap into that whole story at the end when we're sharing more about our experiences. But yeah, that's kind of how I began awakening to the ability to communicate with the universe and ask for signs.
I think it can be hard sometimes to pick what sign you want and pick a sign that resonates with you. And I think that's what stops a lot of people a lot of the time is they're like, I don't know what sign to ask for. And you can just ask for anything and see if it sticks. And eventually you'll just feel that it's right for you. That's what I would really push you to do because for me, that's what I was doing for a long time. Like I knew you could ask for signs, but I never really knew what sign to ask for, and I would ask for them and then they didn't show up, and maybe they didn't show up because they weren't meant to show up, and I think half the time they didn't show up because I literally just forgot that I had set even a sign or what my sign was. I remember I think I pulled a card or something, but like my heart wasn't really in it. I don't know. And I pulled the camel. And so I was like, okay, a camel, that's going to be my sign. And then I was literally like, all right, universe, if you have important things to tell me, send me a camel. And then I just like forgot that I even asked the universe to do that. I'm like, the universe could have been like literally putting a camel down my street, like a full live camel walking down my street. And I would have been like, that's so cool. But I would have forgot that it was my sign. And then I pulled a card because I was like, no, okay, I really need some direction. It was right around the time I was starting my business. And it was after I invested in my first course. And I just knew, okay, I need some guidance. I need to know if I'm doing the right thing. And I picked a fox. And that one has stuck. I mean, that's the one I've been using for years now. If you've listened to any of my personal content, it's what I talk about all the time. The fox is my little animal, my little sign from the universe. And it didn't necessarily mean that much to me beforehand, but now it has a really special significance to me. And so it will stick, it will feel right. And if you ask for a sign and you feel like you forgot, or whatever, and it just doesn't feel, or you see it and it just doesn't like send tingles up and down your spine and like warmth through
Like you
your
will
heart.
know when it's your sign.
It'll feel so special. And every time that I see a fox, I don't see it super, super often, but every time I do, it's always a really, really special experience. It's the same. I see a lot of different angel numbers, but 777 is really special to me. And I get jealous because other people see it. I swear, Karlie, you see it all the time. And I never see it, but I think it's because it holds so much weight. Like I see 111, 222, 333. I see all of those so much. 777, I only see at really pivotal moments, special moments. And that's because it's my number. A fun fact about me is I was born on June 7th at 7:57 and I was 7 pounds and 7 ounces. So I'm like, that's my number. That is mine. And I don't see it too often, but when I do, it does the same thing. It sends those shivers up and down my spine, which other angel numbers, which we can get into a little bit as well, just doesn't do the same thing. So if you're looking to figure out which sign to pick, be patient with yourself. You can get it wrong a few times and you'll know when it's right.
Do you feel like, Maggie, like the 777 doesn't like kind of shows up for you when you need it the most? Like because it is like a strong one, do you feel like because you see all these other angel numbers, do you feel like the 777 like comes forward when it's like the universe or your angels are like really wanting you and really giving you that deeper support?
Yes, it is. It's definitely that. It's the same with like a fox. I see pictures of foxes all the time. Like that, I'll see like a fox on a print somewhere, and that's really like my regular sign from the universe. But then there's been just a couple of times I've seen a fox in person in places that I did not twice. Well, it's been twice that I've seen a fox in person, not times that I expected. And actually before I was super spiritual, I was in high school and it was this, actually I just graduated. It was the summer I was about to move away and I was having a really, really hard summer. I was having a really beautiful summer, but I was also like going through some other stuff as well. And I was moving away. Like that was a big transition moment in my life. And that was the other time looking back that I've seen a fox in real life. So I've seen 3 foxes in real life. And each time it's that electric feeling. It's really special. And it gives me that same energy as that 777 of this is rare, but it comes when I really need it.
Yeah, that's what I kind of wanted to know for myself, but like for the listeners as well. If like maybe you don't see your sign or a specific number as often, and maybe this is your sign to like recognize, okay, like maybe it's because it comes through, because like it's a strong message that like I really need to hear. And I loved what you said, Karlie, about how like it's not just like the physical, like that exists. And I was the exact same, like how I like stumbled upon all of this was through Sam and through the Universe Has Your Back. Like that was the very first like book, like spiritual book I ever read, and it changed my whole life. Because like before all of this kind of like work and like science and like working with the universe, connecting with the universe, you feel like you're like so alone and you're doing it like all by yourself. But like when you can ask for that sign or for that like that clarification or that support, like it takes like a weight off you, and you just feel like you don't feel so alone, and you have this higher power, you have these angels, you have these guides, you have like the universe like supporting you. And especially like on my entrepreneurial journey, I remember when I went full time in my business, and I had just left my full-time job and I went all in and I took the risk, and at this point like I hadn't earned a single penny. And I remember like I have a video of me like walking through, because I literally was in my living room and I was like, okay, universe, like please just like show me a rainbow, because a rainbow is my sign. And I now I'm known for rainbows. Like people like just like for my birthday everyone gets me a rainbow cake, everyone's like, we have rainbow parties, you know, like everyone knows me as like the universal sign is a rainbow. And like it's just like people send me rainbows all the time, like always like, oh, rainbows remind me of you, Sophie. And I see rainbows like all the time, like all the time now. I literally seen one this afternoon, because I right now like today I've not been having like the best day. I've just been feeling really deflated and kind of low. And before we came on this call I was like, I'm just going to go for a walk, and literally as I walk out my door there's like a big fat rainbow, and I'm like, of course. But that time when I had just left my full-time job and I was like, please just show me a rainbow, like please universe, like that I made the right decision, that I'm supported on this path. And I literally come through to my bedroom and there's this big fat rainbow like outside my window, and it's just that kind of like confirmation like that you are supported. And I actually just invite you, like right now, like if there's something that you're maybe struggling with right now, or you're kind of wanting that clarity on, maybe this is your invitation to just like ask for a sign as a collective and see what comes through for you, and be open. Like Maggie said, like you can forget. So maybe like being open and like open to those signs and allowing yourself to start receiving them.
And open that if you don't see it, maybe you were meant to not see it.
Yeah, like
I
that's
think
a sign as well. Like if you don't see it, that's also a sign. Maybe I think Maggie did. Maybe this was what you said once in maybe one of your episodes, like your solo episodes. It's like you can ask for another. You can ask it again and see if it comes through. But like if you don't see it, like that's also a message too.
It is. And I think we want to hear what we want to hear, right? So with signs, it's like, oh, I must have just not seen it. It's like, okay, if you're not sure, ask again. Or if you saw it and you're not sure, sometimes you ask for a sign and you're like, I don't want to see this thing because I don't want to get this sign. And then you see it and you're like, oh, or you're just hesitant to take the action. You're like, oh, do I do this?
Yeah, and like even today, like obviously it's good like in terms of that kind of like having that support system and having that clarification and that guidance. But even today, because I was like getting all in my head, and I remember like my back was turned to my window, and like the rainbow was just always outside my window. The car, and like live in a main street, so like I see cars come by with angel numbers on it all the time, and I was like getting in my head and I was like, oh my god, like maybe I should just like leave business, like I can't do it, and literally turned back around. And as I looked out my window, like literally as I said it, I turned around, a car with 555 went by, and then instantly after a car with 777. And it's just like that confirmation from your angels, from the universe, like you are okay, like you're exactly where you're meant to be, like you're supported on this path.
Exactly. And if you don't want to hear it, like that's okay. But the universe isn't sending you signs just to like back everything up that you believe. It's sending you signs to co-create and to guide you and to work with you. And sometimes it's the universe sending it. Sometimes it's your guide sending it. And they're going to tell you the truth. They're not going to be like, oh yes, this is exactly what, if you're like, am I meant to be with this person? And that person treats you like garbage, they're not going to send you a sign. They're not going to, because you're not meant to be with that person. And it's difficult to hear sometimes. And really quick before and maybe you guys can back me up here if you've experienced this, but I also just wanted to say that signs also don't have to be like, send me a rainbow or send me a fox, or even just like seeing it and like feeling that. Sometimes the universe speaks through like song lyrics, like the right song coming on the radio. Sometimes the universe will speak through like signs that you see. And a big one for me was I was listening to a podcast when I first was leaving a really toxic job, and she was talking about signs, and so it worked with the sign 1111. So I looked, and on the thing she goes, maybe you need to quit your job. So you ask the universe, like, should I quit my job? And it sends you 1111. And I look, and it's 1111 on my stove. And I was playing like a little game on my phone, and it was like, she goes, and then you go, oh, and I thought, oh, what are the chances of that? And then she goes, and then it goes, okay, you're not listening. And she says this maybe like a minute later, you're not listening, knock, 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 quit your job. And I look, and there's the money on the game I was playing was 1111. And I was like, that's so funny. Yes, it's speaking through signs, but it was also just directly speaking to me through the words of this woman on this podcast. So sometimes signs come in ways you don't expect it.
I literally was just going to say that, Maggie. I love that you mentioned that, because a lot of times I feel like signs are really just synchronicities guiding you. So like everything is kind of and you know it, once again, you will feel that tingle, right? That like, no, this is it. Like there is no doubt that this is it. And for me, I feel like now my signs are just a lot of synchronicities. Like I'll be in meditation and I'll see a number, and then all of a sudden that number starts to pop up everywhere in my life. And signs come through your path of least resistance. So whatever your path of least resistance is the way they'll flow through. So like Sophie is really connected to rainbow. So her sign comes through as rainbows. Like Maggie has made that path of least resistance be with foxes and 777. And so that's how they will come through, is through that path of least resistance. And it's like energy flows where intention goes. So the more you start to open up to signs and synchronicities and support from the universe, they're going to flow through in ways that connect and resonate most with your being. So that's why sometimes you may pick a sign, or you may be looking in one direction and something just feels off, and you know that that's not your sign. That's because there's some form of resistance there. So it will probably come through in another form for you. And the biggest thing I feel like when it comes to seeing synchronicities is starting to release that self-doubt. Like whenever you notice doubt appear, just ask it to step aside, because it's most likely your ego. And then the second that you let down that self-doubt, you start to see signs everywhere, because you have let go of the resistance and they start to appear. That's why it's like, sometimes it's so crazy, you guys. I'll look through my camera roll and I'll notice that so many of my pictures were taken on angel numbers, or there will be crazy angel numbers like on cards from when I was little. So it's like the universe has always been there supporting you. It's just been that you been receptive to it, or you haven't been in the mode where you're willing to flow your energy there and see it. So it's not like, oh, all of a sudden I'm spiritually awakening and now this support is there. No, it's always been there, but you practice free will. So your guides and everything are not going to come on in and intervene and, like force you to see things. No, it's once you start to awaken that you'll begin to see all the things that have always been there.
If you clock your sign too, like Karlie was saying, that's your ego getting in the way. If you see your sign, it's your sign. That's your intuition. If you're questioning it, being like, is that my sign? That's your intuition grabbing onto that thing and being like, look, there's your sign. So, I mean, you can always ask again, like Sophie was saying earlier, but if you notice it and you're clocking it as, oh, I asked for that sign and now I see these like 2 butterflies. Oh, is that it? It's like, yeah, that is it, because you just noticed it. Otherwise, you wouldn't have even noticed it. Yeah.
And I feel like the more you lean into it, the more you see more. Like there's no wonder Sophie sees a million rainbows because every time she sees one, she knows that she's going to see another one. Like
It's
she
like confirmation every time. Like I know it's like I don't even need to ask for them anymore. It's like the rainbow, like the universe is
they'll
just
just
showing me
appear.
every time we get on like an aura elevation workshop, like the rainbow comes out right before we get on one. Like yes, here I'm with you, aligned on the right track, like we are with you. And I think it's just like I think it's magical, but I think I love what you said earlier about like the universe is it's like always been there. It's always been there. And it reminded me of like actually when I first started to open myself up to angel numbers because I like didn't quote unquote see them ever, but I was just not like open to them. And I was having a conversation with somebody I used to work with at my last job, and this is not even that long ago. This is like 3 years ago, and she's quite spiritual, and she was just like, yeah, like I see angel numbers all the time. I was like, what's angel numbers? And then she told me, and ever since that conversation, that's when like I started to see them like all the time, and because I opened myself up to them, and I can see them like I can point them out when people I'm with are not open to them. And I have this magical oven as well. I have a magical oven that's just always speaking to me, like my angels, the universe is always speaking to me through this magical oven with like angel numbers all the time. And it just like it's just that nice sensation that it kind of like moves through you of like, okay, like we're supported, everything's going to be okay. But I loved what you said. I just wanted to put that out there of like I loved what you said of like the universe has always been there. It's like always been supporting you, and it's just about allowing yourself to be open to receive that, putting your ego to the side, and allowing yourself to like work with these signs, work with them, and not be like, because I know I can be guilty of like, what does this mean, you know, like what are you trying to tell me? But that's your ego, you know, like putting your ego to the side and allowing your intuition to communicate with that sign and trust that you actually do know what it's speaking to you.
I have so much to say about how to interpret signs, but I want Karlie to tell her coincidence thing that you were about to say first, Karlie. So go ahead with that. But I just want to say I have so much to say about how you can, if you're so confused about how to interpret signs, how you can start.
For sure. We should definitely talk about that because I think that's one of the questions I get so much, or people will like direct message me, what does this mean? And I'm like, I can help steer you in the direction, but you're the only one that can truly know what it means for you. Because you can search on Google, and like Google will always say like, oh, crows are your ancestors, or, you know, you're seeing an eagle, it's symbolic of this. But like you'll know too when you're reading what it means for you. But anyways, we'll get into that. But I just wanted to share this kind of crazy synchronicity that happened this past year. And it will just kind of be a story of how signs can sometimes be shown in different ways, and how once you start to see it once, it starts to show itself more and more. I was meditating. This is back in October, and just a little backstory. I like the last relationship I was in was probably a couple years ago now. Like it ended a couple years ago. I've kind of just been on my journey of working with myself, discovering self-love, healing, you know, finding that wholeness within. And it was like October, and I was meditating, and all of a sudden in meditation, like I'm just doing breath awareness. And usually when I receive downloads, it will just be like a flash of an image. And I saw a flash of the number 37 and this man. And I was like, what the hell? Like, who is this? I've never seen this person before. And I was like, okay, noted. I like wrote it down in my notebook, because at this point I don't doubt anything. Once again, I just receive it and I write it down. And that's how oftentimes our signs come through, is just like you receive it, and if you question it, then you'll push it aside. You'll let your ego take over. But I was like, all right, let's see where this goes. So then the next weekend, I'm at a bar and I run into this man and I start talking to him. And he is the man that I saw in that flash before me. And I did not recognize who this was until further into the night. We really hit it off, and it was just like a really good time. And after meeting him, I started opening up my heart more, because I realized how hyper independent I was and how closed off I was to meeting people. And then I was like, what does 37 mean? You know, like I know 7 is a sign of like spiritual growth, and 3 gives those vibrations of like spiritual support. And I was like, all right, 37 together. So I did my little Google search. I was like, what is 37? Like this master number. And I read through a few things, and then I got to like one description that really resonated. I was like, this is it. And it was that sign of like divine things manifesting, like divine. Do you want to share, Maggie?
The masters of manifestation are surrounding you and helping you create the life you have always dreamed of. That's in my
Yeah.
angel numbers book.
So I see that number and I'm like, okay, cool. So I meet that guy. That's kind of like my wake up call of, wow, you've been closed off for some time now. It's time to start opening up. So I start on this journey of opening myself up to like meeting someone again. And you guys, I kid you not, from October all the way up until now, I have been on a whole nother level of like my spiritual awakening and healing journey because I opened up my heart again, and so much pain came through from my last relationship and just feeling unworthy again. And I'm like, what the hell? Like, because you do so much work with yourself. And then the second you start opening up to meeting someone else, it's like another tier happens. So I start seeing 377 everywhere. I see 377 on cars. I see it like on likes on Instagram, just everywhere. And I'm like, all right, this is the universe supporting me. I'm this master manifester. So I start my little scripting letter of the partner I want to meet and all these things. And I end up meeting this one guy. I'm going on a tangent. It's almost done. I meet this one guy and I'm like, oh my God, is this the man I've been manifesting? And then I was like, no, this was me manifesting the wounds that were still in me, because this man brought up all the things that were still in me that like needed to be addressed. But through meeting this man, I unlocked a whole nother level of myself and released so much pain without closing off my heart. Then as I was telling my friend about this man one day, and I was like, I don't know, I feel like this is a sign from the universe that I need to let him go. The car in front of us has 777 on it as I'm conversing about this. And then a truck drives past with this guy's name on it. I'm like, in big old letters, it's his name, and it drives past. And I'm like, oh my God, what does this mean? Because 777 in his name. And I'm talking about, should I let him go? Am I going to grow from this? It was like the universe was like, yes, honey, like let him go. You're going to grow. So I did that, let him go, and I was like, I will not close off my heart just because it was hurt. Like, I'm going to grow from this. So flash forward 2 weeks later, I start talking to this man, and he
man, for clarity, right? New man.
And yeah. Maggie and Sophie know about this man now because I've been talking to him for quite a while now. And I asked the universe, I said, give me a sign in roses if this man is going to be someone very divine for me, because I could just feel something. I was like, something is quite like just very, the synchronicities were strange. When I meet this man for the first time, well, he gives me his phone number, and his phone number has 773 in it. He brings roses to me on the first date and has brought me roses every week since I have known him. And it is like the most like weirdly in sync connection I've had with someone, I think, in my entire life. And that in itself, like the whole manifestation of this person coming into my life, started with me in meditation, seeing 37 and the one man I was going to meet at the bar that next week. And as always, when I meditate and I have those things, I always have my preonite with me, which is like a beautiful crystal for precognition. So if you are interested in seeing some of those downloads, get some preonite. But
and
that's
for
my
heart
crazy
healing.
And heart healing, yes.
Yeah. Big one for heart healing, like grief, wounds, like amazing for all of that. So it's so funny that you said that about, you were saying, oh, should I let him go? And then 777 and his name comes by.
I've never had anything like that happen. I was like
what's
my
going
jaw
on?
Dropped. My friend was like screaming. She's like, what the hell?
I love that so much. Well, and I think it's because when we ask for signs, or like, you see his name, you see the 777, we're so conditioned to think that signs mean something like is divine and is right. And I think that's what we automatically think. So like, you could have seen that and been like, oh, 777 is his name. I shouldn't give up on him. I should reach back out, blah, 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 blah. And instead, you tuned into how you were feeling. And you were saying, okay, let's tune into how I'm feeling here. And let's see what this sign truly needs to mean. So when you look at that, you're going, okay, you know what this needs to mean to me is that I need to let him go, because I was just talking about letting him go, where so many people would see that sign and they would say, oh, his name in 777, it's meant to be, I should reach out. But what your guides really want you to do, like, this is, I think, the basis of, like, if you really just can't seem to tap into that intuition, you just don't know what the signs are saying, I always tell people, take 30 seconds and ask yourself, what was I thinking about when I saw this sign? And how was I feeling? Because if you were feeling like garbage and then the sign comes up, maybe that means you need to let something go. Maybe that means you like, no, this isn't right.
And I also just want to pop in super quick and say that in that moment, deep down, I could feel my gut feeling was this isn't aligned, but my brain was telling me, no, a man's in your life. He's like treating, he's talking to you, even though he wasn't talking to me very well. Like it's your ego that gets in the way. But if you go deep down, the answer. Like, you'll feel it within your being. And it's just that need to like let go of yourself trying to avoid that truth. And then it will just click and you're like, shit, I'm going to have to do this thing. I don't want to, but it's my intuition. It's my gut feeling.
One other way, though, that I wanted to say that signs can come through, we're talking about signs from the universe and signs from our guides of guiding us and leading us, but we can also have signs from past loved ones. And sometimes our past loved ones do want to guide us and they do want to tell us about something. But a lot of the time, our past loved ones also just want to be like, hey, I'm here. And they want to send a little bit of love. And when you see these signs, you can just like feel that love within you. My business sign is butterflies, actually, funnily enough. But I also picked butterflies because I really feel like my drive and what I want to be doing with my life of like having my own business and supporting my family and doing all that really comes in the shoes of my grandfather. And my aunt, after he passed away, my aunt said that whenever she saw butterflies, she knew it was my granddad. And so when I was trying to pick a business sign, I tried a few and then I thought, you know what, I'm going to do butterflies because like he is my inspiration and he's how I like follow that lead of how I want to lead in business and how I want to be a business person. I mean, he wasn't a spiritual healer, but like there's a business side to it as well. And I really look up to him for that. And so I chose a butterfly. And I remember the first time I asked for it, a butterfly literally flew into my window 5 stories up and landed on my arm. I have a photo of it. I was so blown away. And I think, yeah, that was for business. But I also sometimes when I see butterflies, I just think, oh, that's my granddad. And he's just being like, you've got this. Like, I love you. You've got this.
And what I love as well is like what you're saying is like they can come in different ways, like through angel numbers, through different signs, and you can have a sign for different things. And something that came through when Maggie was saying that is that like my sign for money and abundance is owls, and like unconsciously the cafe that I work at in my hometown is called the Book Nook, but like their branding is owls, and there's like owls everywhere, like in the cafe. There's an owl like on their kind of sign outside, and just like it's just like the kind of centered around owls, and which is so divine because like I unintentionally like that like connected those two together. And it's funny because I've actually met a client at that cafe where we were the only 2 people there. We got talking, we got connected, and then she became a client inside of Aura Elevation, and we've stayed connected since. I brought Maggie there. I brought a friend that I connected with in a business program there, and she came over and we went there. I've met other people from business and like connected there as well. So it's like funny like how it's good that you can use like different signs for different things. Like my kind of like just overarching universal sign is a rainbow, but like you can also have like more specific signs for specific things as well. And like for instance, like Maggie was also speaking about how you can have signs for your past loved ones, and my sign for my papa and my granddad is birds, because both Karlie and Maggie have took me through a spiritual healing practice, Reiki and passive regression, and both of them seen and connected with my papa or my granddad, and they came in the form of birds, or they had birds all around them. So like that's whenever I see magpies, or whenever I see a blue bird, and specifically I know that or they have some sort of blue in them, I know that that's my papa, or I know that's my grandma or my granddad. And actually, like last week when we were recording, I was recording at my grandma's house because I went and visited her. So I just like took the call from there. And after we recorded, we looked around. I think Maggie was like leading us through a little kind of like present activity to look around and to just like notice the things around your room. And as I looked around, like I didn't see these before, but like there was paintings of like bluebirds all over the room that I was sitting in my grandma's house. And I was like, God, that's so, like, it just like that nice feeling knowing that you're supported, you're guided, like you're always surrounded in that divine support from your past loved ones, but also just from your angels and the universe. So like what I want to do to just wrap up this session, wrap up this podcast episode with you guys, is just take a deep breath in. And if there's anything you've been struggling with, anything you've been wanting support on or clarity with, I know for sure that I do as well, as I navigate a few things, and maybe just asking for a sign in this moment together as you listen to this, just speaking it out loud, asking the universe and asking the angels for a specific sign on something that you would like support on. Open up your heart with us, and yeah, be open to seeing and receiving that sign. And if you do, and when you do, please let us know. Please reach out to us on Instagram, or put a little Instagram story up and take a picture of your sign and tag the three of us in it. We want to see these signs. But yeah, I hope you enjoyed this episode all about asking for signs. I'm sure we'll bring another episode like this back, because we always see signs. We'll always see our rainbows. We always see all our signs, and it's like that divine guidance and support that just keeps us going on our path and just makes us feel safe. Especially as people, I don't know about you guys, but I certainly spent a lot of my years feeling like the world was against me, or feeling like I was so alone. But now being able to open my heart up to that divine support that's all around us, like Maggie said, like we've been speaking about, it just changes everything. It shifts everything in your vibration and your mindset and your well-being in your life. So just being open to those signs and allowing them to support you. And yeah, if you haven't already, I would love for you to rate this podcast, leave a little review, and yeah, we will see you next week for another episode.
Bye.
Bye, guys.